Richmond's always crazy. You know, it's awesome.
Something between the stadium lights and the night, it just creates this vibe and this energy that you can't really explain, but you know is there.
I like everything about it. I like the layout, I like the shape, I like the way it races.
It's a very tricky racetrack. You know, there's no perfect setup. You got to compensate. You got to find that happy medium.
The atmosphere at Richmond in the fall is pretty complicated because of the whole chase scenario. You're kind of worried about who you're racing with. Is this a guy that's in? Is this a guy that's out? Is this a guy looking to be in?
Everybody wants to be in the chase. That's the time that you have to make it. You have to do it.
Time may be running out for Kyle Busch. He might need to win yet again here at Richmond to get into the chase this year. Ryan Vickers tasted victory at Michigan, but still sits 20 points shy of that first ever postseason berth. Matt, Mr. Consistency Kenseth, has never missed a chase. Can he hold on to that 12th and final spot? And the Biff, Greg Biffle, may need to hold his breath for a postseason spot after slipping down to 11th in points after last week's disappointing race at Atlanta. Folks, the heat is on here for the heavyweights of NASCAR at Richmond International Raceway. One race to go. Who gets in and who goes home? Just 105 points separate 5th from 13 in the chase contenders. Jamie.
Well, Doc, as we begin now, what's the final practice for the final race to the chase? All eyes are on the two guys who are trying to make their way in. Ryan Vickers is 20 points back. He's 13th right now. But when it comes to Richmond, of all the bubble drivers, he's actually tied with Juan Pablo Montoya for the worst average finish, 28th. He only has one top 10. Now on the flip side, Kyle Busch sits 14th, 37 points back. Of the bubble drivers, best average finish here at Richmond, 6th. And oh, by the way, he went to victory lane in the Cup Series in May. Shannon?
Well, Jamie, over the past few weeks, you've heard the drivers that are locked in say that despite the security, they don't plan on changing their game plan at all. Well, things could be a little bit different here this week. Some of those locked-in drivers have said that they're going to treat this race as a one-off deal. And for Denny Hamlin, there's a little bit more on the line than just those 10 extra bonus points. This is Hamlin's home track. He wants to win here more than anywhere on the circuit, and he has openly said that this team has thrown everything at this weekend. They are 100% focused on getting a win. Doc?
Thank you very much, Shannon. Hello, everyone. Along with the champs, Dale Jarrett and Andy Petrie, I'm Jerry Punch. Glad to have you with us for what is the final practice session for this, the final regular season race of the year. The playoffs, the chase begins next week, guys. I know it's always stressful to compete at the elite level of NASCAR Sprint Cup, but what's the pressure been like for these bubble contenders this week, trying just to wait to get here to Richmond?
It's just been unbelievable for these guys. They can't sleep at night. Their waking hours are thought just about what they have to do, and basically what they have to do is go out here and do their job. They can't make any mistakes. This is their last chance. They don't want to let somebody slip by them and let an opportunity to win a championship slip by them. So the pressure is insurmountable, almost more than what they really want to deal with at this point in time.
And what you don't want to do as a crew chief or crew members, you don't want to overthink this. You just want to go out there and do your job and do it well. But it's hard to not overthink it. It's really hard not to think about the pressure that you're under. You don't want to be the guy that leaves a bolt loose or something on the car that would cost you a chance to get in this chase. So those guys, and especially like Drew Blickensderfer, there's a ton of pressure on him. He's the guy that's the crew chief or the bubble driver that's sitting right on that 12th spot.
Well, let's take a look at these guys on the racetrack. There is Greg Biffle, one of the guys you just heard about. A little bit of a frustrating weekend last week at Atlanta, despite the fact that he had a top 10 finish. He slipped down to 11th in the point standings, and there is the 11 car as well, Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, I was talking to Denny Hamlin some yesterday, and he is very excited about his chances. He really likes what he's seen with this race team, the way they've been performing. He thinks he has a great chance at a shot at winning this race tomorrow night, but he really thinks he has an excellent chance of winning this championship.
And he has nothing to lose and everything to gain by just coming here and winning the race. Doesn't have to worry too much. Unlike Greg Biffle running right behind him, he's got a lot to worry about. Can't make a lot of mistakes or make a mistake that will take him out. So a lot of pressure on that team. But it's nice to come in here like Denny Hamlin's team and have a chance just to go out there and win and don't worry about falling out or having some kind of problem.
Yeah, we talk about that pressure, you know, and the thing about it here, 400 lap race, and that pressure is not going to go away literally until you get to the end, because a lot of cars run well here. We have a lot of cars on the lead lap all night, and so you could get down with inside of 20 laps to go and thinking you're okay, you've done your job all night, and then either an accident or a flat tire or something like that puts you in trouble.
Well, guy, here's Casey Kane, and remember, he knows what it feels like to come to this racetrack and lose a chance to be in the chase. It happened to him a few years ago where he came in the top 12 and got bounced out of Richmond. Now, last week, just the opposite, Andy, where he was able to gain 5 positions with that win at Atlanta.
Yeah, it's amazing what a win will do for you. And they went in there. I heard Kenny Francis this week talk about how they wanted to go to Atlanta and get a solid finish there just so they could take a little bit of this pressure off here at Richmond. And, boy, that's the way to do it. Go win the race, get all the points you can get, and take a lot of that pressure off.
We'll be riding along with Casey Kane tomorrow night, and he will be our in-race reporter. So if you would like to possibly ask Casey a question, log on to ESPN.com, search Ask the Driver, and pose a question. Maybe we'll pick your question that Dale Jarrett will ask him during the pre-race or during the race itself, during the caution flag, as Casey Kane tries to drive his Dodge to another win here at Richmond. We talk about guys that are in the chase. Here is a guy that's not in the chase, but took a major leap forward for his race team last week at Atlanta.
Boy, I'll say, what a run he had last week at Atlanta. And that's a big ray of sunshine for RCR as a whole, the whole company. They need to see something like that because it's not been the greatest year for them. And to have that right there happen, hopefully they can build on that and not just Kevin's team, but the whole team.
Yes, Kevin and Richard Childress have both said, you know, they've had some pretty good runs throughout the year, but in those weeks that they were having pretty good runs, they got caught up in an accident or something happened to them. So it really hasn't shown up in their finishes, but they're pretty excited about the future. They know they've made some changes within their organization, and I think Kevin Harvick is really satisfied. Okay, this is where I'm going to be at least for next year, 2010. We've got to really work hard to make this happen.
And if you missed our coverage in Atlanta, Kevin led 66 laps, something he hasn't done. He has only led one race previously the entire year and finished second to Casey Kane. When we talk about pressure in drivers who have been in the chase, here is a guy who wants to get in but has never been in the postseason, Brian Vickers. But you start having the kind of year he's had, got all the poles early on in the year, and in the last 8 races, he's had like 6 top 10 finishes.
Yeah, I think, Andy, if he happens to make his way into this, and this hasn't been his best racetrack by any means, but he'll need to take it. Maybe he did it this week, but that pit crew that changed that axle last week, he might need to take them to dinner.
That was amazing. He needs to anyway. That was amazing what that team did. It's just, I can't imagine they could even stay, within 1 lap of the lead. But they stayed on the lead lap, and after changing an axle, that's something that Jimmy Johnson's team spent a lot of time in the garage changing. So got to give them credit for that.
I'll bet you didn't know the fact that as good as Brian Vickers has been in this Cup car, he has never had a top 5 finish on a short track.
Boy, that's the last thing he wants to see right now. He doesn't want to see that graphic. He wants to get the first one this weekend.
Yeah, I've told you before, drivers only look at those stats when they're good for them. They don't pay attention when it doesn't benefit them.
Well, this guy we're going to show right now, all the stats here are good for him. He has the best average finish at this racetrack, and that is Kyle Busch, who won it here back in the spring. In fact, he swept both the Nationwide and the Cup race here in the spring, and trying to become just the 10th driver in the history of this racetrack to sweep both Cup races in the same season.
I think right there is why there is so much pressure on Matt Kenseth. He knows what kind of record this car has. He's worried about this 18, I'll guarantee you, and he's planning on having to finish high enough that he can't worry about this 18. In other words, he wants to finish in a spot that the 18 can't beat him if he wins and leads the most laps.
And the reality is there that he could do that, lead the most laps, win this race, have the most wins with 5 through these first 26 races, and still find himself outside that top 12. So you have to perform. You have to perform at a high level all the time, but you have to have some consistency about you. And unfortunately, they've had a few of those weeks whenever they weren't very good.
But they don't want to think about that. They want to think about coming here and doing what they did in May.
Right.
Exactly, DJ, and hopefully getting into the chase with that maybe 5th win, which will give them the #1 seed. Let's go back down to the garage area and Jamie.
Well, Doc, local boy Denny Hamlin had a good first practice, was 5th, and then he just came on the radio a few moments ago in his first run, and he said, man, I don't know what's wrong with this thing. I'm dead loose. Well, he came in, he had a flat left rear tire. That's a pretty good reason to be sideways out on the racetrack. So they're making the swap. They're going to go back out there and make a long run.
It's a good thing they caught that, because what will happen sometimes, you'll have a tire that has a slow leak. You'll go and start adjusting on that car, and you'll dial it right out before you realize that it was a tire causing the problem the whole time. So a good catch for that team.
Very good catch for those guys, and we've got lots of motorsports coming your way throughout the afternoon. We'll have qualifying coming up for the NASCAR Nationwide Series. That'll be headed your way at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. Of course, NASCAR Nationwide Series, there's the qualifying and race coming up later tonight, 7 o'clock under the lights here at Richmond International Raceway. Our Sprint Cup coverage comes your way tomorrow. Qualifying are tonight at 5:30 Eastern Time. I'll get it right in a moment. 5:30 Eastern Time on ESPN2. And, of course, live flag-to-flag coverage of the Chevy Rock and Roll 400 at Richmond. That is on ABC, beginning with NASCAR Countdown at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Back with more happy hour coverage in a moment. Live coverage of happy hour practice here, NASCAR Sprint Cup Series style at Richmond. Here's the 5-lap averages. Pretty good sign there for Clint Boyer, the former winner here back in 08. Pretty good, consistent car over longer runs. We talked about this track has been around since 1953. 36 times a driver has gotten their first win of the season here. The last one to do it, this guy right here, Clint Boyer, back in 2008, and he has yet to win here in 09.
Well, this would be a good place for him to get that done. And, boy, that would help RCR get things going in the right direction, too.
Yeah, they've got a number of good shots with that race team, guys that have had success here with Jeff Burton and Kevin Harvick along those lines. We see Carl Edwards here still battling that broken foot.
Has the Frisbee fracture, we recall. I talked to Carl down there before the practice session this morning in the garage, and still very uncomfortable. Can't put weight on the foot, has to use the crutches out of the car. He says the most comfortable part of his day is actually sitting in the race car.
Well, that's a good thing because he's got a lot of sitting to do over the next 2 nights and next 10 weeks. This has to be a difficult place for him, though, to really work the throttle on this short track where you're rolling out of the throttle, going down to the corner, then having to really work the throttle as you come up out of the corner, especially as you get on older tires.
Yeah, it's a very high braking racetrack, too, so they're putting a lot of pressure on the brake pedal. In Carl's favor here, though, is he's able to use that left foot on the brakes, and the right foot is on the throttle. That's the one that'll get a lot of work out, but you don't push on the throttle nearly as hard as you push on the brake pedal.
The fastest single lap thus far in this session was set by a rookie, Scott Speed, who's standing by with Shannon.
That's right, Scott Speed, one start here at Richmond. So, Scott, we know that the car's fast. How is it handling out there on this Richmond track?
Feels good. I mean, we were quick here in the spring and the qualifying stuff, and just now we made our first qualifying run, and it felt really good again. I think we got a better handle on the race package in practice earlier than we did last time. So far, second time back, seems to be going better.
Now, obviously, you know that your teammate Brian Vickers trying to make it into the chase. What role is your team playing in his efforts?
We'll see. I mean, we're trying to help out, trying stuff on here that they might want to try. But we can't do much, but what we can do, we're definitely doing.
Scott Speed looking good so far in this Richmond practice.
He qualified 8th here back in May, Shannon. Had trouble during the race, but ran in the top 15 for much of the first half of the evening. Got in a little trouble later on, so maybe Scott can get a top 5 qualifying spot or maybe even a front row start here tonight. '17 car, Matt Kenseth. He has done exactly what he has had to do. We jokingly call him Mr. Consistency, but he is just that, DJ. I mean, on the racetrack, if you had to put a guy in a car and say you got to keep it at this spot in the points, he might be one of the best to pick.
Yeah, he really does a fantastic job at that, and he knows what his job is coming in here. And, the other thing that he has is really on his side, he has a great pit crew. They do a fantastic job for him in the pits. Even if his car's not exactly right, we saw it a number of times last week at Atlanta. That car never was exactly right, but they would make up 5 or 6 spots in the pits, and then, he might lose those on the racetrack instead of losing the 5 or 6 spots behind that. So that's just invaluable to this team effort that they're going to have to put forth tomorrow night.
It's also great to have, like I said, Doc, having Matt Kenseth with the poise he has behind the wheel. I mean, what I saw him do last week at Atlanta, he hit the wall, the car wasn't good, he hit the wall and banged it up pretty good. And they did not give up. I mean, the team and Matt, they struggled and struggled until they finally got this car where it would run and got a decent finish out of it to stay in that 12th spot.
Well, Matt Kenseth entered the 2009 season on a mission. He wanted to make a statement early, and boy, did he at Daytona.
Matt Kenseth wins the biggest race of them all.
The wins came early for Kenseth.
It's another guy trying to hold his chase spot.
The woes, though, came late.
How about that 17 car?
But still, Matt Kenseth controls his own fate. 12th in the point standings, trying to control his fate here. One more race to hang on to that final transfer spot for the former Cup champion. Can Kenseth hang on and get it done? Back with more live coverage in a moment. ESPN College football continues tomorrow night as freshman quarterback Matt Barkley leads the USC Trojans into the horseshoe, where they'll face the Buckeyes of Ohio State. Two top 10 teams battle in a season-defining matchup with conference pride on the line. College football primetime presented by Hampton Hotels, number 3 USC and number 8 Ohio State. Tony Stewart on the racetrack here in the 14 car. He is our points leader, and after this week, it remains to be seen. He may or may not be the number 1 seed in the chase. If he is the number 1 seed, he'll have to win one more race if Mark Martin and Kyle Busch get in. Tony's struggled the last 3 weeks. Been a little bit of an enigma guy. How can this guy be so good, and after his win at Watkins Glen, now the last 3 weeks, not even have a top 10 finish?
I think there's a number of things that you can look at, but at some point in time, this team had to have a little bit of a letdown. They've been going wide open for the last 10 or 11 months, putting all of this together, making it happen. They had a huge amount of success because of the cooperation of a lot of people. At some point in time, it just something has to happen to kind of take a little bit of the wind out of your sails.
And I'll tell you something else. If you look back at our 3-time champion Jimmy Johnson, he has seasons that look similar to this. When he gets going into the chase or right before the cutoff, he's not the number 1 guy. But as soon as that chase starts, he's ready to go. And that might be exactly what we see with Tony Stewart this year. He might give Jimmy a run for it.
So you anti-Stewart fans, don't get excited because Tony's going to come roaring into this chase next week in New Hampshire.
Well, I have a feeling he will.
You definitely have to count him as one of the top 2 or 3 favorites as we start that chase next week in New Hampshire.
He did win a race, by the way, this week, the Prelude to the Dream up in Rossburg, Ohio. Here's the 24 car. Jeff Gordon, another one of the drivers locked into the chase. Gordon right now 2nd in the point standings following that 8th place finish last week at Atlanta.
He's 19th on the speed chart so far in this practice.
Yeah, Jeff always really good at this racetrack. You have to believe these guys are poised also to make a run at that 5th championship for Jeff Gordon. I think they've gotten themselves settled in and really are excited about their prospects and chances of winning that title.
They're going to need just a little bit more, though, than what they've been able to show so far. They've got a little bit more to show as far as beating their teammate Jimmy Johnson. That's a tall order, but he does have the same equipment as Jimmy, and obviously the experience. And if I had to pick a challenger, he would be a good one.
In the garage area, you go talk to people, and they say, other than the obvious choices of Tony Stewart and Jimmy Johnson, I asked a couple guys, who would you pick? And they said, everyone points to that 24 car, said he may be the sleeper of the year, if you can call a guy that's been a 4-time champion a sleeper, because they have been getting better and better and may not have shown their hand. Now, one of the surprises of the chase this year may be the 42 car of Juan Pablo Montoya. Jamie.
Well, he certainly had a great run last week in Atlanta, finished 3rd. He sits 8th in the points, but he is not a happy driver right now. 24th on the board. He went out and made a run and came back and hopped out. Didn't tell anybody he was getting out. Frustrated. You see them working on the front end of that car. They're actually changing brake pads and brake rotors, so obviously having some issues early on in this final practice.
Jamie, I was down there earlier, and you can really see the pressure on this team. I mean, for Juan Pablo Montoya, folks, here's a guy that's won the Indianapolis 500. He's won the Grand Prix of Monaco. But he knows right now he is 1 race away from possibly championship contention here in the Sprint Cup Series. And you can see, I mean, for the first time all year, I saw him feeling the pressure.
Well, you just don't want this kind of problem either. This is a brake issue, and it's probably the most important thing at Richmond is having good brakes. And that's if you don't have the brakes working, I mean flawlessly, you're not going to run good here.
Yeah, and that's what you have to be careful. You go at the beginning of a practice, you have to be careful not to heat those brakes up too much. You get the rotor warped just a little bit, or the pad glazed over or something like that, then it creates a whole big problem for you. And as you said, Andy, you don't want to be messing with situations like this.
Here's the 44 car on the racetrack, A.J. Allmendinger, and there was some news coming out this week, an announcement by the Richard Petty Motorsports that they are going to team up with Yates Racing with Ford. Starting in 2010, it'll be a 4-car team as of right now, and one of those 4 will be A.J. Allmendinger.
Yeah, Doug Yates will not be, as far as the ownership in cars. He will build the engine still for all the Ford products that are out there racing. So it'll be interesting to watch as this team switches over, this whole organization switches over. But you know, their 4 drivers right now are going to be Casey Kane, A.J. Allmendinger, Paul Menard coming over, and Elliott Sadler. So that's what they have in their stables right now.
I think it's a very positive move for Richard Petty Motorsports to be merging with Yates and Doug Yates. And wow, look at that thing. That thing is loose. Smoking that right rear tire. But that's got to be a positive thing, and all these drivers in the stable have to be pretty excited about that kind of a merger, having Doug Yates building engines for them.
Well, that's what Doug, does, but not that he couldn't run the race team, but it's hard to do both this day and time, and Doug Yates will be able to just put his full attention to building the engines and getting the most horsepower for all of these Ford cars.
Here's a 00 car, and we talked about David Rudiman having somewhat of a breakout year this in 2009. 2 poles, he got the win, albeit with some help with the weather at Charlotte. But he has been very close to getting in the chase, and mathematically, folks, he still has a shot. Back 15th in the standings, 132 points away, but it is a slim one.
Yeah.
A lot of things have to fall his way.
Well, we'll just call it mathematical chance. I don't think as much of a realistic chance, but he has had a great season so far. And I mean, not just the win that he got, but a lot of races this year. He has been a contender to win races. So I think they've got a bright future ahead of them.
Yeah, I think that's the impressive thing, how many times they put themselves in position to win other races or to run up in the top 5.
How about a guy that's been in this sport for 27 years and finished a runner-up in the points 4 times? Could Mark Martin become the first 50-year-old champion of NASCAR? More about him when we come back. Happy hour continuing here. NASCAR Sprint Cup Series cars in their final practice. They will qualify later today. We will have that live coverage coming your way as well. Right now, atop the speed charts, Mark Martin, then Scott Speed, Paul Menard, Jimmy Johnson, and Kevin Harvick. Now, earlier before this session, they brought in some of the bubble drivers, some of the guys in the top 12 to the media center and asked them about some of the controversy this week with regard to team orders. Remember what happened with John Forst and HRA? We'll explain in a moment. But they asked these guys, would you be involved if there were team orders or maybe teamwork to get someone into the playoffs?
We saw it a couple years ago. We made a lot of talk about, Roush letting every car lead a lap when they could and things like that when they were dominating. So yeah, I mean that's another way of throwing it when you're giving away a position just to get points and then giving it back. It's been going on ever since there was the first teammate, back in the day. So
how far, there's always a line where I think a teammate can help, but one thing is helping, the other thing is hurting somebody trying to help. I think that's crossing the line.
There's still 10 races left. If you wreck someone to get into the chase, well, you may be in the chase, but you probably won't win the championship.
I think if we threw something for Mark, I think Mark would get out of the car and whoop some ass. I mean, he wants to go in there and earn it on his own. I don't think he'd tolerate something like that. I mean, if you're running 20th and your teammate's behind you and you can use the 3 points, I mean, but if you're leading the race, I'm not pulling out of the way to make sure Mark Martin makes the race if he's in second. Yeah, it just didn't happen. But for the win, man, it could be my mom back there and she's not getting by.
There is Mark Martin. Remember at Bristol, Tennessee, when Mark was dominating, he actually agreed. He was asked and agreed to let Jimmy Johnson by and lead a lap to get bonus points. But Mark did say, hey, he doesn't need the bonus points.
Really?
We need to lead the most laps. But Mark, being a good teammate, agreed to do that. But right now he is battling one race and one chance to be able to get back in this chase.
Yeah, and Jimmy Johnson's exactly right. Mark Martin doesn't want anything given to him. He wants to go earn it, and he realizes they have to do that. But those were all very valid points. Is somebody going to go out there and take somebody out? No, don't see that happening. It doesn't happen in the sport generally. Is somebody going to help if they have that opportunity back there somewhere outside the top 10 and they can help a teammate? Yeah, why not? I mean, you have teammates for a reason. If you're going to be able to get information from them, you should be able to help by getting them 3 or 4 points on the racetrack too in the situation.
But you really get to see Jimmy's true grit right there. He says, if you ask me to move over and I'm leading the race, forget it, pal.
Yeah,
I don't
not
care
even
who
for
you are.
mom. That's right.
And I think anybody would say that in the sport. Almost any driver would say the same thing. Hey, I'm in it to win it, and that's it.
We talked about the NHRA situation and the John Force scenario this week. Your thoughts on what, John, on what really happened?
Well, I mean, what did really happen? I mean, John's saying one thing, and we have others saying other things. So, if you're totally manipulating the concept and the process, then that's one thing. But, John Force is looking out for himself and for his organization. They had to get themselves in that position for that to even happen to start with. So it's not like it was handed to him there. And Andy, I think you wrote an article about it.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. How hard do you expect John Force? Whoa, look at that 48. Man, he did that all day last week at Atlanta. But how much do you expect John Force to go after that to try to knock his teammate out? I mean, you don't expect him to race too, so hard. I mean, so I don't know. I think it's a tough call. And, he's trying to get his cars into their version of the chase, and that's the way he did it. And the other guys are not happy about it. And I don't blame them either, for that matter.
Yeah. I don't think Jimmy was too happy with that change, was he?
I think he wants to adjust on that car a little bit.
The 98 car, Paul Menard, right now being shown third in the speed charts, and he is one of the 4 cars that will be a part of that merger between Yates and Richard Petty Motorsports they announced earlier in the week. He's primarily out of the Yates stable. Paul already signed and sealed for 2010.
Yeah, probably a good situation for him, I'd say. Andy, you've worked with Paul, so pretty talented race driver, but probably something that should help him.
Anything he could do to put himself in a bigger, larger, more powerful organization is a good move, and this is going to be great for Paul. To be teamed up with those guys and be able to trade notes with Casey Kane and Elliott Sadler and other guys like that, I think it's definitely a positive for Paul.
Here's the 2 car, and talk about frustration the last few weeks at Michigan. We saw Kurt Busch taken out in an accident last week. The incident where he spun the car, just trying to hang on, and got an abysmal finish. Got out of the car and threw the Hans device, very upset. And this team told me that this whole organization, it has been a very difficult week emotionally for them, thinking about what could happen here at Richmond.
They went to Atlanta thinking that if they went down there and could duplicate what they did there in the spring, then they were going to lock themselves into the chase. And what transpired was that they came away from there in a very precarious situation. They have to do everything right here on Saturday night, or they could possibly be outside the top 12.
Yeah, nobody wanted to come into this race knowing that they had to look at Kyle Busch. Little power slide getting in the corner. He'll call that one good and come in. But nobody wanted to come into this race knowing they had to race, for this spot. They would love to come in here like all these guys that are locked in and just race for a win. But, hey, it's not the way it's set up.
We saw the work going on in the garage area a moment ago for the Juan Pablo Montoya Chevy, and he's back on the racetrack and still languishing outside the top 20 right now in speed.
Well, they just moved up that lap to 13th, so they've evidently got something going right. You see, he's really hustling the car right here.
Like I said, I knew it was going to be a quick lap.
Yeah, that's quick. So quick you missed it there, didn't you? Oh, man, did he ever. He jumped up to 3rd there on that lap. So, yeah, they got it fixed. That'll help his attitude a little bit.
I like the fact that even though they talked from the beginning of the year about how much they wanted to get in the chase, and Brian Patty DeCruci said that's going to be our focus to get top 10 finishes. Juan Pablo the last couple of weeks has still been very aggressive on the racetrack.
That's it. That's kind of his signature, if you ask me. Juan Pablo Montoya is a very aggressive race car driver, and he's doing what he does best.
He was making it 3 wide, even 4 wide once at Atlanta, and still managed to get the great finish. Back with more in just a moment. We invite you to join us for live coverage starting at 7 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow night. It is the Chevy Rock and Roll 400 at Richmond NASCAR Sprint Cup Series event. All begins with NASCAR Countdown. Alan Bestwick, Big Brad Doherty, Rusty Wallace, and all the gang. We are live on ABC in prime time. It is rock and roll for 400 laps here on the short tracks. Now, we asked some of the drivers because of the race tomorrow night and its name, what is your favorite rock and roll concert?
Best concert I've been to is Elton John and Billy Joel. Was absolutely amazing.
It was Matthew Sweet opened for someone named Melissa Etheridge, who I had no clue who she was at the time. But me and my buddies went to go see Matthew Sweet. We're like 14.
I'm a big fan of Dave Matthews, and he was playing with Tim Reynolds when I was at Purdue. And the two of them playing acoustic guitars the entire time was absolutely amazing.
I think I've probably had the most fun at Diamond Rio concerts because I'm really good friends with those guys and have always had fun hanging out with them.
AC/DC, because they are bad. I have, you know, considerable brain damage from AC/DC loud.
Little glimpse into the wild side of Mark Martin, a little AC/DC there. No wonder you see he's so aggressive when it comes to getting pushed a little bit.
I have to say the best concert I ever saw was a Kiss concert. A pretty impressive show that they put on back in the day.
Yeah, mine would be too, either Nickelback or Elton John. I'm a huge Elton John fan, so that was probably at the top of the list.
Here's a 71 car, and that is Mike Bliss this weekend. And if you're wondering about David Gilliland, who normally drives this car, or Bobby Labonte, who drove it very impressively last week at Atlanta, they are both in different cars. So Mike, who has been running on a regular basis, the former Truck Series champion, and the NASCAR Nationwide Series driving here in place of Gilliland this weekend.
You got to give Slugger Labby a call. He's the crew chief on this car. They had a great race last week at Atlanta with Bobby Labonte in this thing, and now up in the 11th spot so far in practice. So that's pretty good for this team.
These are backup cars. These are, I should say backup. These are older cars they bought from Richard Childress and Dale Earnhardt Incorporated with Earnhardt Childress racing engines.
Yeah, and he actually just moved up to 6th with that lap right there. So these guys just keep making it better.
Montoya back in after that run, and he moved all the way up to 3rd on the speed charts, Jamie.
Well, Doc, after the first run, you know, they came in and they changed the brake rotors and brake pads, and then he went out, clicked off a couple of quick laps, came in and said it's chattering the nose when he puts wheel into it. So they came in and they're making a right front shim adjustment and put it on scales. They're checking their heights right now. The heights were off just a bit in the back. So doing a little housekeeping down here. At least Juan Pablo's smiling right now, guys. That's a change.
It's amazing how you can go from 26 and you're serious and upset and angry to 3rd, and suddenly you're smiling at everybody.
Yeah, you live and die about that stupid monitor back there. I'll tell you, I've done it my whole career, and if you're up on the top of that thing, great. But if you're over on that right-hand side, you are not happy, I promise you.
Yeah, as a driver, you can hear because of the way the garages are. Most of the time, you can't see those monitors until you get out of the car. And you're peering around, trying to look underneath the hood and everything, trying to see if you can find out which one of those lines is yours if you're up close to the top.
Jamie talked about adjustments to the shims. What exactly are they doing? Why don't we go down to our Craftsman Tech Garage and show you with Tim Brewer.
Thanks, Jerry. This is a radial mount caliper. What we do, we mount the caliper straight off the fixture. But how we adjust the shims is back underneath here, because the shims are actually centering the rotor between the caliper, making sure you have the same amount of drag or clearance on both sides of the rotor.
Yeah, there's a lot of shims on the car. You got shims in the wheel. You got wheel spacers. You got shims for the A-frame and camber. You got shims in the bump stops. We call them spacers or shims that they put in there, packers.
Their little metal wafers look like a penny or a quarter with a slot cut in them, right?
Yeah, you'd be surprised just how small amounts of shim in any of these places can make such a big difference.
And somebody's seeing those tires on there, Andy. They're not running rain tires here or anything, right?
No,
That's a setup. Those
are setup tires. They put grooves in them right there. They can't run them on the racetrack, and they use them for consistency. So they put them on the car when they're setting up, and they don't have to worry about having a set of tires that might have a little bit different size or a different shape. They have this set of tires they put on there just for consistency when they make changes on the scales.
Back out on the racetrack, here's the 47 car of Marcos Ambrose. And Marcos, 2 top 5 finishes the last 4 races, a second at Watkins Glen, the third the last time we were on a short track at Bristol, Tennessee. And guys, in the spring here, he ran in the top 10 for much of the night and slipped at the very end to finish 11th.
I promise you, this guy's the real deal, and they have had a great season so far. And I think that we're talking about how good Rudimann's car has been this year and how well they've run. I think it's been both cases. I think that this car's run better because of Rudimann, and also I think that Rudimann's run better because of having a good teammate like Marcus Ambrose.
Yeah, and we sometimes talk about too much how good a road racer he is. We don't mean to confuse people, but he's an excellent racer. He just has a good feel for the race car.
Mark Martin still atop the speed charts. Mark put that lap up about 15 minutes ago. Has been back in the garage area since then. I guess if you're the best of the best, why go out there and run some laps when your car is that good? There is the 13 car of Max Pappas, former open wheel ace, Formula One test driver, IndyCar driver. Logged his best finish in a NASCAR Sprint Cup car earlier in the year at Watkins Glen, where he finished 8th.
Well, he's put a pretty decent lap up there, 22:58 so far.
Let's go down and check on the injured possible bubble driver, Carl Edwards. Jamie.
Well, you don't see this every day. Carl Edwards climbs out of his car in the garage and they hand him his crutches. He's been standing here on crutches for a while. Carl, what are you guys working on right now?
Right now they're putting new brake rotors and pads on it. Had a little bit of a brake shake. You know, his dashboard is bouncing up and down. But the satellite fusion was pretty fast in race trim in the first practice. Struggling a little bit right now, but we're getting ready to put it in qualifying trim. See how fast it can go.
I know right now you're focused on getting this car good to lock yourself in the chase tomorrow. But next up, you see you got your Nationwide suit on. You're going to qualify for the Nationwide Series. How different is it for you to jump in that car knowing all this is on your mind?
Well, this is the #1 priority, but really on the Cup side, we just have to have a decent run, a good solid run. And on the Nationwide side, we need to be winning races, close that gap. So we got a lot of pressure on both sides, but it's different. So I'm excited to get over there in the Scott's Wild Bird Food car and hopefully lay down a pretty good lap. And that's always an exciting race, so it should be fun tonight.
All right, Nationwide qualifying is coming up next on our air, and right now they're going to keep working on this 99, see if they can jump up on the speed board there, Doc.
Thank you, Jamie. Now looking at Carl Edwards, guys, he's got 2 major fractures in his right foot. DJ, tomorrow night's the critical race, getting in the chase. I know he wants to be able to run well in the Nationwide race tonight, but how tempted would you be if you were Carl to maybe get out of the car tonight and not run the whole Nationwide race? Or do you think that sort of impacts your mindset for the weekend if you were to climb out?
Yeah, we're all different, and the thing that makes Carl Edwards happy the most is driving race cars, and he has a commitment. He likes to honor those commitments to the sponsors and give them everything that they signed up for at the beginning of the year. So, yeah, I think in the situation, over 200 points out in that Nationwide Series, it would be very tempting, knowing now that he's not locked in, he really has a fight on his hands tomorrow night to maybe start this car or start the Nationwide car and, let somebody in the Roush organization, they have a lot of drivers over there, take over. But, that's not the way Carl wants it. So I think you do what makes Carl Edwards happy here. That's going to be the best thing for his mindset.
I think if he truly thought that he was hurting the efforts of this 99 team, I think he would do that. I think he really believes that he's okay. He can go ahead and run that car and still be very effective driving this 99 car.
Here is Kyle Busch, who won here back in May and now sits 14th in the standings, some 37 points back of the transfer spot. There has been a lot to smile about this season for Kyle Busch, but it has been either feast or famine for the kid from Las Vegas. Now he must roll the dice one final time in a race to get in the chase.
When he wins, he just really tends to put a whipping on the field.
His Jekyll and Hyde season has meant domination one week and disappearance the next.
The AC is not going down without a fight.
4 fingers may mean 400 laps to get into the chase. On the racetrack, let's update his progress. Shannon.
Doc, Kyle Busch has spent the majority of this practice session in the garage, only a little over 20 laps he's turned. The major problem they've been working on are the brakes. They had to change the front pads and rotors because he had a vibration. And then the last time he pulled it into the garage, he said he had too much rear brake. So they worked on that. Maybe you guys can talk about the fact that Kyle Busch is obviously great on short tracks, but just how important it is to get those brakes right here.
Boy, Shannon, you're right, and this is probably without, take Martinsville out of the picture, and I'm not even sure you do that. I think this is probably one of the most difficult races and racetracks on brakes that we go to because you're going so fast. And this car has kind of made it that way too, because you've taken the speed from the straightaway to the middle of the corner is a lot bigger gap there. You have to go from a lot higher speed to a lot slower speed, and then you got the center of gravity that's higher. It's just hard to get this car to stop.
Yeah, and also you have these long straightaways. What we always found here is you talk about those brakes shaking. We've heard a number of guys talk about it as we look at his average times here on his runs, but it makes it difficult because those brakes have time. You use them so hard going to the corner, but then they have the straightaway to cool off, and that seems to create a problem in the brakes with the rotors and the calipers together, and really can be a nightmare for the driver if you don't have that exactly right.
Pardon me, but I thought as good as he is in the corners driving these things sideways, he didn't need to use the brakes much.
You don't much, but he had to use some, so even as good as he is.
Well, some of the guys on the racetrack have gotten their hands full out here trying to get their cars dialed in, including this guy, Brian Vickers. Tell you what happened a moment ago.
Up off the corner there. Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Laying some rubber down, wasn't it?
Man, oh, man. That's at turn 2 that it really gets you, especially these guys are in the most difficult situation. The sun's come out here, the racetrack's heated up, and they're trying to get their cars ready to race at night. And it's just really very, very difficult to do. But that is a difficult spot. Probably the most difficult spot on this racetrack is the exit of turn 2.
The reason that turn 2 is so difficult is it's an increasing radius turn. You start out getting into turn 1, it's kind of broad and easy, and the more you get in the corner, the tighter it gets, all the way to the exit till you hit that straightaway, and then the track just flattens out real abruptly.
You can see out of turn 4 here, you still have that banking. The front straightaways bank quite a bit, but as Andy was talking about, you go down in here into turn 1, you have plenty of room there, and then it starts tightening up, and the wall starts coming, and then the racetrack falls away from you as far as having that banking to lean on.
You come off of 14-degree turns in turn 1, and it goes down to 2 degrees in the backstretch, which makes it even more difficult. Back in a moment. Lots of racing to come your way here from Richmond International Raceway. Qualifying today, 4 o'clock Eastern time, and race coverage live flag to flag tonight at 7 Eastern time for the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Both those on ESPN2. We'll have qualifying for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series at 5:30 Eastern time, also on ESPN2 here at Richmond. Starting spot very important here for the Cup cars, and of course live flag to flag coverage. The Chevy Rock and Roll 400 at Richmond tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern time on ABC. Let's go down and talk to Matt Kenseth. Shannon.
Well, down here with Matt Kenseth, who is 12th in the point standings right now. Looking at your car, you guys are getting ready to move over to qualifying trim. What else do you need out of your car for tomorrow night's race to finish where you need to finish to get in the chase?
Yeah, I mean, we got to go run good. I mean, Kyle and Brian both run good all the time, and we got to be able to run better than that tomorrow night to get in. So I feel like we made some progress. Our dual forward's been getting a little bit better all day long. I don't know how it's really going to be, honestly, until we get into the race tomorrow night. The conditions are going to be a lot different. So I don't know. I feel like our balance is a lot closer to what we've been here lately, so hopefully it'll be all right.
We've heard a lot of the drivers who are on that bubble talk about the fact that it's the last 25 races, not this weekend's race that will get you in or get you out of the chase. But can you describe what the pressure is like this weekend here at Richmond?
Honestly, for me, it's no different. I can't speak for the Drew or the rest of the team, but for me, it's really no different. I mean, you start thinking about the chase at Daytona, and like you say, you run 26 races and try to get here. This is just one of the races. It just so happens to be that it's the last one, and we're really, really close to the cutoff. So if we make it, we can't look to this race and say it's why. If we don't make it, we can't look to Richmond and say that's why. We got 26 weeks to get things done. So we're approaching it like any other race. I really feel the same as any other weekend. We're going to put forth 100% effort, work at it as hard as we can, and hope at the end of the day that's good enough.
Matt Kenseth currently 12th in the standings. Doc?
Matt's got a win here back in the fall of 2002. He has 3 top 5s and 9 top 10 finishes and 19 starts here at Richmond. And as you said, heard a moment ago, he has struggled, though, here recently. He has not had a top 10 since the fall of 2007. Now, there is the commitment line and the commitment cone that's supposed to be in position there where you come off of turn 4 onto pit road.
You see they're scattered right there. They're not where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be back on that mark on the yellow line to show exactly where you have to be below to get to the pit road.
Yeah, we didn't start practice like that. You can see here, Greg Biffle getting a little bit close to that.
What did you say a while ago? He picked up his spare?
Picked up his spare. He did. Knocked them both down.
That cone is there today in practice to give them an idea of where that orange box is, but actually during the race they'll have to be able to recognize the orange rectangle there and that yellow line across. That is the first speed line where you got to be down to 40 miles an hour coming on the pit road.
Yeah, and you have to make your commitment there. You have to have all 4 tires below that orange box there to get onto pit road, and you have to make sure that you do that. And then once you do cross there, you can't go back out on the racetrack without a penalty. Here's our fastest guy so far in this practice, Mark Martin. Going back out to make another shot at it.
Mark, 5 poles and 4 wins in 2009. Hoping to be able to get into the chase here. He currently sits 10th in the point standings. He is 49 points ahead of the cutoff, which is Matt Kenseth.
Yeah, I'm sure they're putting a lot of effort into qualifying. If he could qualify up there and get those 5 bonus points, be a huge start to their night.
He's consistently fast too. The last lap would still place him first. It's just a little slower than his fastest lap, but still faster than the second place car. And that lap right there, even faster, 22:04. So he's lowered the standard just a little bit as far as lap time, or actually raised the standard, what they'll have to beat.
Be something to look forward to when we get into qualifying later on this afternoon. Is that second lap going to be faster?
And here's a guy who really needs to get all the bonus points he can get here Saturday night. Kyle Busch, who led here and won back in May. He needs to be able to lead most of the laps and go to victory lane to have his best shot at getting in the chase. Shannon.
Well, Doc, Kyle Busch was definitely realistic coming into this weekend. He said it is going to be tough. Well, it is getting even tougher for this 18 team. They go out, they run about 3 laps. The car is great, according to Kyle, and then it just goes to junk. They have decided to go to qualifying trim right now. There's about a half an hour left in this practice session. They're 18th on the speed charts, and he does not look happy right now. You see him talking to Steve Addington, discussing possibly what changes they can make to this car in race trim for tomorrow night. Guys?
It has been somewhat of a tale of 2 seasons for Kyle Busch. The first 12 races of the year, he won 3 times and led a ton of laps, 789 laps to be exact. But the last 13 races for Kyle Busch, take a look. He's only led 127 laps, 24 of those coming last week at Atlanta, and he only has 1 victory, and that coming at Bristol, Tennessee. Now, back in the spring here in May, he was all smiles, and for good reason, because it was a Kyle Busch kind of night at Richmond. He needs another one of those tomorrow night. ESPN College football continues tomorrow night as the Trojans of USC head to the Horseshoe to take on the Buckeyes of Ohio State. 2 top 10 teams battle in a season-defining matchup with conference pride on the line. College football primetime presented by Hampton Hotels. Number 3 USC at number 8 Ohio State on ESPN tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern time. For more information, log on to ESPN.com.
I saw where that freshman, Matt Barkley, said that he had played in front of 26,000 people when he was in high school. I think there's going to be a few more than that when he shows up at Ohio State tomorrow night.
And they're not going to be happy to see him either, up there, those Buckeye fans. Here's Jamie McMurray, who's has run well in the past here at Richmond.
Yeah, he finished in the top 10 in the last race here. He's going to be looking for a ride, though. This 26 team is basically going away at the end of the season. And Jamie's looking for a ride. I don't know where he's going to wind up yet. But he's definitely out there looking.
Yeah, he's told me that there's a few options there that he's just trying to weigh those options and see what's going to be best for his future. Obviously, a very talented race driver, and he's just looking to get himself in the best possible position that he can.
The 2 or 3 different teams I talked to in the garage area who may have openings in 2010, his name was on their short list, so everyone appreciates and respects that this young man has ability.
Oh, yeah, he's a great race car driver. This would be a great catch for some team to pick him up.
Just like anybody else out there, looking to get yourself surrounded with those right people that are right for you to make it happen.
Last year's Rookie of the Year in the 78 car, Regan Smith, and although they have had a limited schedule this year, the good news they passed along about a week and a half ago was that they have been able to secure sponsorship. And Barney Visser, who owns this team, the Furniture Row team, said in 2010 they are going to come back full-time in NASCAR Sprint Cup.
Well, that's good to hear that this team's back out there full-time. This is a good team. They run it out of Colorado. Joe Garone and that bunch out there do a great job. and good to see him back full time.
Yeah, I think that's a huge challenge for them, but they seem to be up for that in running it so far away from the mainstream of things.
Talk about running. Here are some of the guys who have run the most laps in this final practice session, including Casey Kane and Jeff Burton at the top of those numbers. Jamie.
Well, Casey Kane's out of the car. He's kind of just cruising around the garage right now. But Casey, you said you're pretty happy with the car. You guys are going to qualifying trim. Tell me what you guys were focusing on this practice.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty happy with the Budweiser Dodge. We made a lot of adjustments, and I feel like we made some pretty good gains. So it's good. We forward drive back, trying to get wide open. Whenever I'm around a car, they're sideways, and I was the same. So I think we made some gains there. We were pretty decent that final run there with forward drive, and old tires. It's hard to compare to too many cars, but I thought it was decent.
Well, Casey, tomorrow night's a big night for a lot of drivers. You've been on both sides of the fence. You've been here at Richmond in tears before, the guy who was 13th and just missed it. What is this moment like for you guys as drivers trying to make this top 12?
It's actually pretty exciting. It's a lot of build-up to this point, and it's pretty neat for the sport, I think, to have this many drivers right on the edge of making it. And I'm just happy I'm got a chance, and we actually have a pretty good chance after winning Atlanta. So we just need to run good all night, and we'll have no problems making the chase this year.
Yep, you got those 10 extra bonus points after winning last week. Can you say momentum is on this team's side, Doc?
Absolutely momentum for Casey Kane coming off that impressive performance last week at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And the track is empty, and so since it is, we'll mention to you, by the way, that Casey Kane was the last driver to get his first win at this racetrack. He got it back in the spring of 2005. Tony Stewart also got his first win here in '99. Kyle Petty, Neil Bonnet, and James Harvey Hilton. Those are the 5 drivers who entered victory lane for the first time at Richmond. Happy hour continuing here at Richmond International Raceway. Again, this is the final practice session of the final regular season race of the year. This is the regular season ending, and of course the chase begins next week at New Hampshire. And so much at stake for these guys that are trying to get their cars dialed in here prior to qualifying later today in the race tomorrow night.
And business is picking up. We see a lot of cars putting on stickers and putting tape on the grill. Clint Boyer's gone to the top of the sheet. Montoya just went to second. See Jeff Gordon out there on stickers. He's trying to run his fast lap. And what all's going on with Jeff Gordon, Jamie?
Well, Andy, Jeff Gordon has been in qualifying trim for the last half hour. He already did one qualifying run, and he came in and said, boy, this thing is plowing. He only jumped up to 9th. So, he's locked in. They're going for the pole here. He has 5 poles. Steve Letarte said, you've got to qualify well. It's so important at Richmond. So they're going to do 2 or 3 qualifying runs until they feel like it's good enough.
Thank you, Jamie. You'd think at certain tracks, even smaller tracks, Richmond, Bristol, would be more important to start up front. But for some reason, if you look at the numbers here, the closer to the front you start, the closer to the front you finish, typically here at Richmond. Why is that?
It's such a consistent racetrack, and really qualifying shows just how good a car you really have, and I think that just bears out in the race. You see the better cars get that starting position, and then they pretty well hold it because they do have good race cars.
Yeah, and as a driver, if you know what you're looking for, the feel that you want here, and you can get that car solidly in the top 10, most of the time you have a good enough car that's going to hang on. And if you can't usually find that speed and then lose it in the race. So it just seems that you see your better teams qualifying up there, and they go on to make that happen in the race.
Here's Ryan Newman, who's trying to be able to get into the chase, and that would mean that both of the Stewart-Haas cars made it in their first season with this new organization. Ryan, now here's the enigma. Last week at Atlanta, Ryan Newman finished 9th. So he got a top 10 finish, and he dropped 2 spots in the point standings. Imagine that.
Well, that'll work on your mind a little bit right there.
Yeah, he knows he can't be slipping up much on Saturday night, but they've done a great job getting themselves in this position. Shannon?
Well, for Ryan Newman at 39, they've just been a little bit free on this practice session, just been trying to work on that. But guys, you're talking about Ryan Newman. He has had top 10s in all 4 short tracks this season. It's been a great year for this team and great year for Stewart-Haas Racing. So right now, Ryan Newman holding it down for that organization.
That has to be one of the stories of the year, is what's happened with Stewart-Haas Racing, having drivers lead the points and also the other one 9th overall in the standings, and maybe having both cars make the chase in their very first year as a team.
Yeah, I don't think anybody with a wild imagination thought that that was really what was going to happen. I mean, yeah, you took two really good race drivers and put them in a situation that they have good equipment, but it takes time to build this stuff and get the right people around. So, Andy, I mean, I'm shocked.
I think they have to be surprised too. But speaking of a surprise, not much of one. Denny Hamlin just moved to the top of the chart at 21.93. Here's the other end of the spectrum, though. This is the dead last car on the speed chart, Dale Earnhardt Jr. He is in 44th spot so far in practice.
And guys, explain to me what's going on here, because this is one of Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s best racetracks. He is a three-time winner here in the Cup car and has always run well in the Nationwide car. He loves coming to Richmond.
They obviously are having trouble getting the speed up, and I don't think they've been out there in qualifying trim yet. They're just trying to work on their car, and it looks by the grill opening there, they're still in race trim, just trying to make this car better.
They did move up to 10th right there.
Maybe I didn't see the tape there, but he did move up. So there is some speed there. They just didn't have it in race trim. So it's nice to see that he was able to come back and put down a pretty decent lap here.
So in other words, they've spent the majority of happy hour working on race setup.
Yeah, they were
just
doing
went to
that.
second right there.
Wow. So they fit whatever they did it right. That's what they needed us to do, is talk about them a little bit. And jumped right off of the bottom right to the top.
That's from 44th second. So, and hopefully they were happy in all that time that they worked on their car in race setup that it's going to be very beneficial to them tomorrow night.
You're welcome, Junior. We talk about you and you go to number 2 on the speed charts. We talk about you a little more when we come back. Maybe you'll go to number 1. Back in just a moment. Final minutes of happy hour, Richmond International Raceway here as the speeds are starting to escalate. And to quote the famous crew chief by the name of Andy Petrie, business is picking up, folks, because everyone's going out now, Andy, and in qualifying trim, and we're seeing different names just multiply toward the top.
Yeah, hard to keep up. Hard to keep up at the top of the sheet right now. You got Carl Edwards number 1. Kevin Harvick just jumped to 3rd. Scott Speed just jumped back up to 4th. Greg Biffle up to 6th.
You see these guys sitting down at the end of pit road waiting to get a good open shot.
Yeah, almost looks like Daytona. Everybody waiting for a clear racetrack to get a clean lap.
Jimmy Johnson, coming off that frustrating 36th place performance at Atlanta, has won the last 2 fall races here at Richmond. 3 of the last 4 times, 3 of the last 5 times we've been here, Jimmy Johnson and that 48 car have gone to victory lane.
He's sitting there relying on his spotter to tell him, as a driver, you really can't see because of the shape of this front stretch. You can't see out your mirror and be able to get yourself cleared. So you're relying on the spotter to get you an opening there. See Jimmy wiggling his car back and forth a little bit, trying to get a little bit of heat in his tires.
Check this out. Mike Bliss just went to the top in the 71. 21.92.
Great effort for Mike Bliss in a 71 car. See what Jimmy can do here. This will be the lap they'll clock. Well, he just nails the throttle coming up off 2.
Yeah, you can see that car looked really good through that corner. Now, sometimes that can mean because it was going slow, it looked good, but usually not in the case of this 48 car. Jimmy not using all of the racetrack there, but it wasn't a very fast lap.
Keselowski jumped second. Brad Keselowski just jumped up to 5th in the 09.
Watching Jimmy Johnson, and right now is being shown 21st on the speed charts.
See him working the wheel a little bit more. Looks like the car got a little loose in this second lap, but it was fast up to second.
All the way to the outside front row right now in second quickest. And again, as you mentioned, Mike Bliss in the 71 car is atop the speed charts. And that organization, they jokingly call the 71 guys that Mike Bliss is driving NASCAR on a dime, because they have 10 total people working, including the truck driver, and limited to no budget.
I think this place in qualifying trim has always been a place that the times are so close. I mean, we see it at Martinsville happen, but it's just amazing. We got 3 cars that have all run 21.93 seconds, and now Ryan Newman goes to the top of the board.
Yeah, he lowers it down to the 21.80s, 21.87.
Now we'll see what Juan Pablo Montoya can do. He was at in the top 5, and everyone started going out and running, and now his time is down to about 18th.
You got Newman at a 21.87, and Sam Hornish is sitting 25th at a 22.16. So you basically got 0.3 of a second in the first 25 cars right now.
And then Newman lowers his time just a little bit more, 3 more hundredths to 21.84 on the last lap.
If you just joined our coverage, folks, this is not a game they're playing here. These guys realize that this racetrack at Richmond, it is very important to start toward the front.
And Montoya just ran the second fastest lap of the session, 21.90.
He's got a second lap coming here, so there's a chance that he could lower that a little bit.
A lot of action here in the last part of this practice.
Yeah, and it's staying sunny. It's not that the track's speeding up here. It's just these guys are getting themselves prepared and ready.
Montoya
to the top. Wow. A lot.
70.
How'd it feel? Much better.
Right.
Leave it.
That's a 1/10 and a half faster than second. And we were just talking about how close everybody was.
Yeah.
And now you see Rudeman now jumps to second at 21.82.
And here's Jimmy Johnson. They're putting sticker tires on, going to bolt some fresh Goodyears on DJ and maybe head back out. Jamie.
Well, they're hustling on the track and they're hustling in the garage, Doc. Jimmy Johnson, as you said, he went out on a qualifying run. He's 5th right now, actually just slipped back to 6th. They said, hurry up, guys, we're on the clock, 15 minutes, let's do this. They put the stickers on, going to try to get up to the top of the board because qualifying is coming up after nationwide qualifying.
While they get fresh tires on his car, let's go back and follow Mark Martin in the 5 car. 5-time pole sitter this year.
Mark Martin was the early fast cat on the track, so we'll see what he can do now. Like you say, he's 21st after a lot of cars have run.
Yeah, he'd set up there on top for the longest time, and then all of a sudden there he is in 21st at a 22.04.
David Stremme jumps up to 3rd. And Mark Martin now jumps into the top 10 on the first lap and 10th.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. back out. Remember, he had gone all the way to 2nd.
He's 14th. That just shows you what's been going on the last 5 or 10 minutes.
See Mark Martin come by and see how much he can pick it up. He goes back to 2nd for Martin.
Another car in the 2170s.
You know what this tells me, folks? That coming up at 5:30 today, qualifying is going to be fun to watch. And this race tomorrow night, but not only to get in the chase, what's going to happen on the racetrack is going to be very, very exciting because we got so many cars so close together that anything can happen. I wouldn't even hazard a guess at who's going to be on the pole later today, but we'll bring it to you live at 5:30. Final minutes of happy hour. Jimmy Johnson, fresh Goodyear tires on the racetrack, trying to put his car atop the speed charts. And Andy, how'd he do?
Almost. He's 2nd. He almost does it at a 21.70. Extremely close.
That's basically the same time that Montoya ran, just a few thousandths of a second slower.
Well, the driver down in 7th right now is Ryan Newman. Let's talk to him. Shannon.
Ryan Newman's also 9th in the points right now. Good qualifying run for you guys out here in practice. What have you learned about that car today that will help you tomorrow night?
The car with the US Army Chevrolet feels pretty good. We were happy with it in race trim and switched over to qualifying trim a little early. Used up our stickers, and that's where we ended up. I think it'll be a top 10, top 12 practice time. I think the track's picking up some right now, too, but I think we'll be in good shape. We just got to keep our nose clean for 400 laps.
Ryan, Casey Kane described this weekend as exciting. How would you describe it?
That's his word for nervous. I mean, it is exciting. It's cool for, I know, Casey and I to be in this position because we've missed it a couple times. And, you know, it's a great place. It's a great racetrack. And just happy to be my first year with this team in this position, having a shot to go for a championship.
So does that mean Ryan Newman's nervous, Doc?
Yeah, I think he knows what nervous is.
Yeah, and these other guys are just trying to talk themselves into thinking they're not nervous. Is what
I love what he said about Casey Kane.
Yeah.
Here's Denny Hamlin, who's the hometown boy, grew up in Chesapeake, just a little while down the road from Richmond, a little ways down the road from Richmond. And he has led the most laps in 2 of the last 3 races here. 529 laps that Denny Hamlin has led in a Cup car, but hasn't won at his home racetrack. But that could change tomorrow night.
Yeah, he really feels like it.
Yeah, he couldn't want it any more than he wants to win here. He really loves this track.
Yeah, he's led almost all the way to the very end of some of these races. That jumps him up to the 5th spot, 21.80.
We talk about waiting to the last minute. Tony Stewart's just now making his first simulated qualifying run. He's sitting in, well, he just moved to 31st with that first lap at 22.09. used most of this practice session to get his car ready for the race and staying in race practice, waiting to the last minute to make this run.
When you're the points leader and have everything locked up, you can kind of do that, because the only thing that makes any difference, it could make any difference to him, is he jumps up to 8.
Top 10.
Is getting those 10 bonus points tomorrow night for winning the race. Jamie?
Well, you guys are talking about setting up his car. They said the car was good early in practice. They were actually experimenting with some side bite things. That's why he was about 40th for most of the practice. But as you guys said, he finally put on the qualifying setup, went out there now, and where'd he end up?
Top 10, Jamie. He's in 8th spot.
All right, waited till the end, and it worked out for him so far.
A good job by these guys as Tony Stewart heads back to the garage area. The 48 car back on the racetrack. Jimmy Johnson says second isn't good enough. And when you're a 3-time champion in a row, I guess second isn't good enough.
It is not good enough.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's just putting a little bit of corner on those tires, and instead of running sticker tires, he might just knock the shine off of those, so to speak, and decide that his car feels a little bit better on a little bit of a scuff.
Yeah, he did not run a full lap right there. All he did is go out on a set of stickers, run them just a little bit, came back in. Here's Rudeman now trying to better his time.
Remember, David Rudeman led over 100 laps, led 104 laps in this race last fall, finished 9th, probably his best run of the year in 2008. Let's see what he can do trying to get into the top 5.
A little bit of shade actually on each end of the racetrack. There's a little bit in 1 and 2 and some in 3 and 4. Straightaways have some sun on them right now, so the track should be about as good as it's going to be.
It's 3:30 now, or getting close to 3:30 now. They don't qualify till 5:30, so how do you adjust for what's going to happen between now and then track-wise?
Well, the track's not going to change a lot, especially if we have a little shade. Now, it will get a little bit cooler, and they kind of know what it's been doing, historically, so they'll make small adjustments with tire pressure.
But it is an advantage if you draw a later number here, because it does cool off, and all it takes is a 1/10 of a second to pick you up 10 or 12 spots as close as the qualifying will be. So it is a huge advantage if you're one of those guys that drew, from 25th to 35th.
The only problem is you can't adjust that.
Can't adjust that. You have no choice. That is what it is, as they say.
David Rudeman will get up and stay as high as 6th overall. Again, it is Juan Pablo Montoya, the quickest. Jimmy Johnson, Mark Martin, Jeff Gordon, and Denny Hamlin right now, with Rudeman in 6th position. Lots of motorsports coming your way. Big weekend for motorsports and NASCAR here at Richmond. Qualifying 4 o'clock Eastern time, and race tonight 7 o'clock Eastern time, both on ESPN2 for the NASCAR Nationwide Series cars. We'll be back with qualifying for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series here at 5:30 Eastern time on ESPN2. And of course, tomorrow night, our live flag-to-flag coverage. Who gets in the chase? Who wins a race? Are they one and the same? We will find out on ABC, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Alan Bestwick, Big Brad, Rusty, all the gang, starting with NASCAR Countdown. Well, let's show you where we stand right now. Still a few seconds left in happy hour. Can someone beat Juan Pablo Montoya? It's Montoya, Johnson, Martin, Gordon, and Hamlin in the top 5.
Good to see David Rudeman, David Stremme, Martin Truex, who was the pole sitter last week, up there in the top 10 once again.
This is our in-race reporter for tomorrow night. He's trying to make another run at it here. A lot of momentum coming from last weekend.
Casey Kane picking up his 2nd win of 2009 with an impressive performance at Atlanta Motor Speedway. He needs to be able to hang on and get into the chase. He jumped 5 spots, but still, even though he's 6th in the points, folks, he is just 76 points out of not being in the chase. So he's got to be concerned over what might happen.
5th spot for Casey on that lap.
Casey Kane. Seconds of happy hour. Less than 30 seconds of happy hour remaining. Can Casey get it? And he will not do it. So coverage of qualifying coming up later. Right now, more news and notes on what's happening in NASCAR as we go live to NASCAR Now at our studios up in Bristol, Connecticut. Here is Mike Massaro.